What is up, AP Biology students or any of you biogeeks out there? Today I'll be teaching you all about evolution. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty side, let's take a look at the history of evolution. Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher, was one of the first to observe complexity among organisms. A few centuries later, Linnaeus developed the binomial nomenclature system to classify organisms. Cuvier studied fossils and thought that each boundary between evolutionary jumps is due to a catastrophe. Hutton suggested that changes in the environment happen very slowly, and therefore our Earth is extremely ancient, or his theory is otherwise known as gradualism. Lyell proposed that geological processes such as volcanoes have not changed throughout Earth's history. Lamarck stated that if animals used a certain body part a lot of times, then it would grow stronger and more efficient. So basically, according to Lamarck, if a giraffe wanted to get leaves from a taller tree, it would suddenly elongate its neck and get the leaves. But we know that's not true. Thank you, Darwin, for actually using common sense to explain evolution, unlike Lamarck. Let's explore Darwin's theory of natural selection. Natural selection is a process in which individuals that have certain traits tend to survive and reproduce at higher rates than other individuals because of those traits. To understand natural selection, we should first look at artificial selection. In artificial selection, people pick the animal species that they like and crossbreed it so that they can have more of that species. For example, a man picks a certain kind of dog that they like and they breed it so they can have more of that kind of dog that they prefer. Similarly, in natural selection, instead of people, it is nature that selects which trait is most preferable. Individuals with the favorable trait are able to survive and produce more offspring than those individuals who don't carry the trait. Let's look at a simple example of natural selection at work. In a forest with dark soil, the ant population originally has few dark-colored ants and mostly light-colored ones. Then a bird comes and feasts on the ant population, and all of the light ants get eaten because they are unable to camouflage in the soil like the dark ants. The next time the bird comes for dinner, it cannot see any ants because only the dark ones remain. Now the dark ants can have more offspring and live happily ever after. The dark body color of the ants is called an adaptation because it is an inherited characteristic that enhances the ant's survival and reproduction in the environment. So what needs to happen for natural selection to occur? Number one, there needs to be variation in the population, which is accounted for by independent assortment, crossing over, and recombination. Secondly, there needs to be an overproduction of offspring. And lastly, there is competition for resources among individuals because resources are limited on Earth. This competition in turn leads to survival of the fittest. All this natural selection, adaptation, evolution stuff is cool and all, but how do we know that this is not some scientific lie? Well, there is a lot of evidence supporting this. For example, we can study geography and see that species from different continents are alike because all the continents used to be connected. We can also study fossils and compare ancient organisms with modern animals and see similarities and differences between them. In addition, we can directly observe that a population is evolving, such as when bacteria evolve to become resistant to harmful drugs every year. Yet, the most significant piece of evidence for evolution is homologies. We can see similarities between species, on a molecular basis as well as an anatomical basis. Homologous structures are features that have the same structure but not necessarily the same function. For example, the human, cat, and bat's four-limb structure is the same, but they all don't share the same function. Analogous structures, on the other hand, have different structures but similar functions. For example, the butterfly, bird, and bat all have wings, but they don't have the same structure of the wings. Vestigial structures are structures that are left over from a previous descendant of that organism and have no function. For instance, snakes have a skeletal feature that resembles limbs inside their body. All this evidence suggests that species share common ancestry. Genetic drift is a process in which chance events cause unpredictable fluctuations in allele frequencies from one generation to the next. Confused? Don't worry, I'll simplify it. So suppose there is a population of beetles with 4 black beetles and 3 white ones. Now Joe Schmo is walking down the street and squishes some of the beetles randomly. By chance, after this incident, there are 2 white beetles and 1 black one left that can now pass their allele to the next generation. This is different from natural selection because survival is based purely on chance and it usually affects small populations. The founder effect is when a few individuals separate from a large population and establish a new population somewhere else whose gene pool differs from the original population. The bottleneck effect is kind of the opposite of the founder effect because in this process, the size of the original population is greatly reduced due to a catastrophe such as a flood. By chance, some members of the population are overrepresented in the surviving population and some are absent. Wait, what? There's different type of evolutions? Yep, 3 of them in fact. Divergent, convergent, and coevolution. Coevolution is the joint evolution of 2 interacting species, each in response to selection imposed by the other. A perfect example of coevolution is the cheetah and the deer. Convergent evolution is the evolution of similar features in independent evolutionary lineages. For instance, bats and birds both develop wings but evolve from different origins. Divergent evolution is the evolution of different functions in organisms from same lineage. For example, whales and humans both share a common ancestor but look quite different. There are 3 types of natural selection: directional, disruptive, and stabilizing. Being able to analyze these graphs is a helpful tool in this course. In directional selection, the distribution of phenotypes and the population shifts over to one of the extremes. However, in disruptive, the distribution shifts to both extremes and the normal phenotype is selected against. In stabilizing, extreme variants are removed and normal phenotypes are preserved. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and peace out.